current session. This is Keynote session 3. Uh, Welcome to everyone in second international conference on machine intelligence and emerging technologies, MIET 2024. Now actually BD time 9:30. However, we have many national and international
Sir,
guests.
sorry for interrupting.
Sorry,
Sir, everyone wants to see you, sir. Can you please?
Oh, sure. Sorry.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, sorry. Thank you. Sorry. So now we are focusing for our main keynote session. The name of this keynote session is AI-empowered portable and wearable devices for digital healthcare. This will be presented by our distinguished scientist, Dr. Muhammad Ali Moni. I think all we are expecting for this enthusiastic and groundbreaking session. So very shortly, I should short brief about our keynote speaker. So actually, he is a worldwide recognized leader in AI and digital health researcher. And he is one of the top 1% highly cited researcher. He completed his PhD from Cambridge University, UK. Currently, he is working in Australia, in Charles Sturt University, Orange, NSW. So he has many peer-reviewed publications, over 300, and total citations more than 26,000. So at first, welcome to our keynote speaker here. And I am requesting to our special keynote speaker, Muhammad Ali Moni. Please, can you start your session? We are actually exciting to hear from you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor Mozumdar, for your generous introduction. And it's a lot. And thank you, the organizing committee, for inviting me to give a keynote talk. So today I'm giving a talk on based on our lab work. So especially the AI-enabled devices that we develop and how we are developing those devices and how we are working using that devices. So actually I have two labs at this moment. So one is in just a bit. So one is in like the University of Queensland, another one is the Southeastern University. Both are at Australia. So I have at this moment 66 postdocs and 15 PhD students. I'm leading and director of Center for AI and Digital Health Technology. So that means 50% of my PhD students are at UQ, and and 50% are at Southeastern, and similar the postdocs are in both places. So all these team members, the core team members, these are the core team members. There are other people who are working collaboratively, and also some of them are working a casual basis. So, but these core members are in the three groups. So one group they are developing the portable devices, and another group like the five PhD students and two postdocs, and another group like the five PhD students and two postdocs are working on the identification of genetic biomarker using the machine learning and bioinformatics approach, and also developing the biosensor for diagnosis using the genetic marker that we are identifying using the blood and saliva based. And the third group are working for the AI-empowered decision support system and for the monitoring the patients. All these three projects, like three programs, are connected each other. So like not separate these three groups. The three groups are working together. So we know a lot of devices are available for like wearable and portable for the healthcare. There are many, a lot, but none of them are FDA. Although FDA approved, none of them are using for the clinical diagnosis. Even though many are FDA approved, but none of them are approved for the clinical diagnosis. But our point is, can we use these devices like the existing devices, or can we develop new devices, new wearable devices Those can be AI enabled and can be used for diagnosis and predicting the future risk of diseases and monitoring the patient and monitoring the complex diseases. This is our the program, the like the portable and wearable devices related and biosensor related. But our work is mainly based on the EEG, ECG, and biosensor based. So the EEG based devices, ECG based devices we developed, that is the existing technique, but we are using those techniques to make those existing devices to the wearable devices or portable devices. And another one is the biosensor. It is the new technique like the electrochemical and optical sensor based that is using for actually is like saliva and blood based biomarker identification, and those biosensor are using for the diagnosis of the diseases. So we are working for this combined of EEG, ECG based and electrochemical and optical sensor based devices, but all of them are based on like AI enabled devices. This is the our programs plan. So I will give the overview of some of my work. So especially I will give one or two projects that we have completed, and some of them are running at this moment. So overall, we can say how all these programs are connected each other. For example, we are developing the portable and wearable devices and biosensor that I mentioned. The portable devices and wearable devices are based on the EEG and ECG signal based, and also some image based. We have some remote monitoring system, and on another one is the like biosensor based. Biosensor is that I mentioned is optical or electrochemical biosensor that are using for the diagnosis of different diseases using the saliva or the blood marker, and those are connected using a different technique using connecting with them either mobile devices for the regular monitoring on the mobile phone or the cloud-based server that is monitoring for remote area. And then we are developed some model. Already we developed multimodal large language model for generating the report in our mobile phone or in our system. So this is the complete overflow in our work that we are running in our center. So why these are important? So nowadays, in the developed country, the government is thinking to reduce the cost for the health, like the hospital cost. For example, if someone lives on night in hospital, then it needs at most like 15 to $2,000 in Australia per night for only for living in hospital without any other cost. So the agenda from the government is how can we reduce the cost for these health purposes. And also we need a lot of clinicians, and we need a lot of maybe the nurse and other expert people for running the hospital. And yeah, so that is the reason the government is pushing to make the house as a hospital, like home hospital. How can we make our home as a hospital? That is one example, and it is really useful maybe for the developed country, but it is the government main agenda, one of the priority area of the research, how it is possible to do. There are many things included for this technique, for this approach, for making the home as a hospital. So that is like using the robot and many other equipment, and also wearable devices and sensor, like many other also technology that is required for running the home as a hospital. So we are running some clinical trial for the like ACE care for using different type of sensor, and we are trying to reduce the number of sensor that can be useful for like for the people for monitoring their health in home based. So it is really important for the future, because day by day like everything is moving forward for on the technology. Now, another point is like our AI enabled devices. Also, like there are existing a lot of portable and wearable devices, but those are not connected with the emergency system and like the hospital and the ambulance, and also the it cannot generate the report for the or message for the family or also for the clinician. And on the other hand, the complexity of the existing devices are it is not clinical applicable, and I mentioned that it is already FDA approved, but not useful for the clinical purposes. I can give one example. For example, we are using the feedback, Fitbit or Apple Watch for generating a lot of signal, but this signal is not useful for clinical purposes because clinician does not trust on that one. So we in our lab we are developing a device that will generate the same signal, same ECG signal of the original signal, but it is useful and meaningful for the clinicians. Also, like here we see that the people who are like we do not stay home all the time, so we need some small devices that can generate the signal or useful information that is maybe useful for all the purpose for family clinician and emergency section. So, and now our point is, can we use all this data generated from these portable devices and can be connected with the other system for making that as a like generating the report and sending the information or message to the required people. So now our project is running. We have received $35 million from one project, and another project where we received $18 million for running for establishing this project. So now I am giving the one example of easy devices that we are developing. We already developed some, and we will run the clinical trial with the collaboration with different clinics and hospital, including in Bangladesh, the Neuroscience Institute. So here, like you see that on the easy devices, the easy devices was very big. Still now the actual easy devices is big. So it is very difficult to understand, and using these devices is not easy for the general people. So we need the expert people to understand that on and to use these devices, and it is also expensive. However, nowadays there are a lot of portable easy devices are available, like the headphone and those things, and those are using many kind of information or but it is very difficult to understand the generated report or generated signal for us. Even are they really useful? Are they really accurate for the people? So that is the question. Based on this question, so we have established one project on the easy based. So easy based, the our more one project is to understand the mental health condition. So in Australia, most of the the main like health cost is for the mental health. Although like in Bangladesh or many countries, we do not think too much about the mental health, but in most of the developed country, mental health is a major problem, and it is the I think the most expensive health area in a country. So based on this idea, so we are using the mental health condition, but our idea is, so like this is the like 64 or 30, yeah, it is a 64, maybe the existing 128, sorry, 124 or the 60, sorry, 128 or the 64 channel easy devices. This is very complex, and it is very complex to understand even generated signal, and it is also expensive. So, but can we know that the brain functionalities or different parts of the brain works for different way and different purposes. So the frontal lobe works for maybe the brain functionality for understanding the mental health. So if we consider the specific region that is useful for the brain functionality or brain related any condition, then it is good if we can identify the location of the brain, and all based on that we can develop some devices for specific purposes, not in general purposes of the devices. So based on this idea, like we identified even the based on the clinical information and literature, we found that only specific region and the like for example frontal lobe. So okay, so the frontal lobe and is useful for maybe the on condition. So based on this idea, we have reduced the complexity in our algorithm development and device development. So On the other hand, the signal, for example, the major depressive disorder, anxiety, and any other kind of mental health condition, so when you use the easy signal from the brain, like even a specific region, this is also we are considering the combination of alpha, beta, theta, and gamma, like these five delta, theta, alpha, beta, and gamma signals. So combination of these signals, we are getting the information through the easy signal. But however, we found that only gamma signal is useful for to understand the uh, like mental health, like anxiety, depression, or major depressive disorder. So in that case, if we can decompose this signal and only consider the part of the gamma, that will be useful for understanding the mental health conditions. So we understand how we have reduced the complexity. At first, we reduced the most of the part of the brain, like signals. So only considering the one specific region. Then we have reduced the like we can reduce the alpha, beta, gamma, theta signals, this part 80%. So it will be a smaller, very small signal. So based on this idea, we have developed the device. The after at first we have analyzed a lot of data and we have run a lot of trial and we have found the specific region, and then we have in the specific region we found that only if we use only channel, four node, then it is sufficient to understand the brain function, mental health. On the other hand, after getting this four channel signal, if we can reduce the 80% of the signal, only considering the gamma signal, then it is sufficient to understand uh, the mental health. So in that way, we have reduced a lot of activities, and recently we have published a paper on that idea, like a part of this idea. And then of course we have done a lot of analysis using the machine learning and identified the, and we have found the signal is really like this way is working um, in a better way compared to the existing general approach. So this is like the machine learning part of the work, that is where we used. So like after considering the signal node using the even the 64 channel, and then we have considered the specific region. We have tried to identify the specific region and to reduce the number of nodes and find out the number of nodes. Then we have find out the number of nodes, that like the fourth channel. Then after getting the fourth channel, then we have reduced after decomposing, we have considering the gamma signal. And then we have the as usual different kind of machine learning model. Here we have proposed on model that I will explain a little bit more. And using that one, we have found that okay, it is working better than the even considering all the signal together. So we have tried to minimize the complexity of the even the machine learning part, like deep learning part, and we tried to make it dynamic. So for example, in our model, I'm not going to explain in details, but the model is, for example, the 1D convolution, like the convolution layers, number of layers, how many layers we should consider. So we tried to make it trial and error approach and also sorted out what is the minimum number of layers is sufficient for identifying the for using the accurate diagnosis. So here is like for example the convolution layer. So we have tried to find out if we see that after the 5 layer the accuracy is not changing, so that means the 5 layer is sufficient for that one. Even on the on the other hand, the kernel size that we used is also we have tried to find out the which one is the best for this specific for this data. But now we are making it generalized. Generalized means we are collecting the data from the overall all the available data and also our own data. We are running the trial in Bangladesh, in Australia. We are running the trial and we are collecting more data and to understand the how it is working, how can we make the can we make our system more robust. So it is the two parts. So this is the methodology of the machine learning part, and based on that on is the using the four node, that is our device that we have developed. So now if we see the how long we need to consider the signal, that is another part. So signal means like the segmentation we consider, maybe the from the easy signal we try to make the more accurate, like we have find out that okay, maybe 5 seconds, 6 seconds, we have done a lot, but I have shown we have shown a couple of epoch here, the 5 second, 6 second, 10 second, 15 second, 20 second signal, and based on that on like this segmentation of the 15 second showed better performance compared to the others. So that is also sufficient. We can say even we can consider the bigger epoch, but the 15 second is sufficient for that one. So even if we see the summary of the result delta, theta, alpha, beta, gamma, and also the combination of the all brain waves, then we found gamma is showing for the 15 second is accurate compared to the like other even combined of the all the signal. It is almost 90 over the 99% accurate, and the FN score is very high. So that is like yeah, it is the same thing, that's the in tabular format of the signal. And we found yeah, the accuracy, precision, and recall all are specificity and FN score all are showing better for our gammas, only considering the gamma signal, and the duration is 15-second epoch. So that means it is almost we are and we have also run this approach, these techniques for other data, and we are collecting the data and to show to look at the to validate our approach. And still now we are happy for our model, and that is performing better. So now we are collecting more and more data. So now the like we have also the compared with the other existing state of the art method model and the articles, and we found our one is working better compared to the others. So now this is the easy signal, and based on the easy signal, in our program we are using the same technique, same approach for other conditions. I gave one example for the mental health, including the depression, anxiety, and major depressive disorder. But in similar approach, we are working for another conditions like the emotion and behavioral pattern identification. So it is another complex things. So using that way, we are developing. It is separate. We are not developing the devices combined for more than one type of condition, because it makes more complex, and the accuracy and performance goes down. So that is the reason our plan is another one, like the to understand the behavior and emotion recognition. In this case we are using, it is a little bit complex compared to the even mental health is also complex. So using this idea, we have published a couple of papers that is on his here. So we have published a couple of paper on this idea, and developing now it is running this project for finishing the device development, and that will be like this model algorithm which is explained in this paper. And also the device is developing at this moment. Yeah. So now the easy, and now we have also the another ECG based project. So idea is similar. The idea is similar to reduce the number of nodes, using the appropriate nodes, identifying the actual location of the location where we need to put the nodes, like the nodes, and how long we need to consider the signal. And then of course there are many kinds of machine learning model, deep learning models, many kinds. So as and we would like to make the generalized model that can perform better. So now integrating all this algorithm and identification of the node, we are developing the devices. So and then running the clinical trial. So this is for the understanding the sleep apnea. And sleep apnea is like using the ECG devices. The ECG devices, like the only the single channel, we found that only single channel like PAS, we can use that on to understand the sleep apnea, the sleep complexity. So recently our on student like is coming maybe next week from the Kuwait. uh, he will work on this project. So but we have published this paper, a couple of paper in 2021, but for the extension of this work. So another student is coming, and already we are running this project, but another student, he will also run this project. So that is the single channel of the ECG device, and then the machine learning algorithm combining this on. Our plan is to develop. We did not develop the PAS, so developing the PAS that will be useful for understanding the sleep apnea, also to understand the complexity of the other sleep related conditions. So the algorithm is like I mentioned that a lot of deep learning algorithm we applied, but also trial and error approach which algorithm performs better. Also, we try to improve the algorithm that can perform better for a specific condition. And our plan is to make it generalized. So this is the our algorithm. Here we have used the developed the hybrid model. So that model worked better, uh, like based on the scaleogram for this sleep apnea. So, and this is not only the sleep apnea. So this is the performance in general that we present. Okay, our model is showing better. The conventional and hybrid model combining that is performing. So the main point is here is like our idea is not developing the approach in a novel, but the technique is to reduce the system and using for the people in a better way. And because that's in the during the sleeping, it is very difficult to wear the any big devices or any even the watch. It is very difficult to wearing that on. So that is the reason we are planning to develop the PAS. And using the same technique, we are working for the cardiovascular condition, so especially the myocardial infarction and like heart attack detection. So the heart attack detection in like even in Australia, in ambulance there is no there are some ECG devices, but there are very few people who can use the ECG devices for the diagnosis of the heart attack. So that is the main problem. So, but if we can identify the heart attack in as early as possible, like within 4 hours, then to it is possible to recover from the morbidity and mortality. So based in to reduce the morbidity and mortality, we need to diagnose as early as possible. But in Australia, many people they to go to emergency section, and they ask, okay, they are feeling any pain on the chest pain or any other kind of maybe problem that are related to maybe the cardiovascular risk. But this is common because in emergency section people may need to maybe wait for longer, but since the cardiovascular condition is very we can say the very risky for the people, so then they get priority. So that is the reason some people even for the normal pain, chest pain, they say that maybe it is related to cardiovascular. So, and that is the reason it is making who has the actual problem of the cardiovascular like the heart attack, so they may have some problem, they need to wait for a long time. So, and that is making problem and increasing the morbidity and mortality. And based on this idea, so we are working for how can we make the portable ECG devices that is useful similar to the sleep apnea. So that is useful for the diagnosis, automated diagnosis for the maybe heart attack. So it is yeah, it is on ECG based. It is on for sleep apnea, another for the stroke. Yes, cardiovascular related like heart attack. And the second part of the project is that is the biosensor development. So it is the genomics based, so a lot of data that is blood based and saliva based, and even from a single drop of blood we can produce 300 gigabyte data. So it's huge. And maybe the diagnosis can give like normal clinical diagnosis can give a wrong report, but this genetic and transcriptomic like blood based and saliva based testing will not be wrong. So it can give the actual information of the human. So that is the reason even the transcriptomic like gene expression or even the metabolomics and other mutations, those are really useful. But for the diagnosis for for generating the data, like I mentioned, 300 GB data from one drop of blood, but it is very complex and it needs more than $1,000 for running that on. So it is expensive, and that is the reason maybe most of us are like have the problem of the um, like cancer or other kind of complex diseases. But it is possible to make the diagnosis report using the blood and saliva, but since it is very expensive, so without identifying any problem, we do not go for this diagnosis. So based on this idea, so like similar to the type 2 diabetes testing kit, our plan is, can we develop the kit that is useful, or like $1 kit or on to $5 kit that is useful for using the blood and saliva? Is it useful for the diagnosis of complex diseases like any specific cancer like prostate cancer or breast cancer? So that is our project, and so in this project we have the two part. One part is the biomarker identification. So like the accurate biomarker identification that can be based on that on, we need to develop the devices like the kit, like simple maybe just a sensor. So this is our methodology. So like different people develop different way, but our idea is combining of all the data that is possible to produce. So integrating all this data, we can identify the biomarker, that is the multi-omics based biomarker. And so there are different layer of this, how we have developed this one in a on a approach is multiplex network model, and another one is the, before I mentioned, it is the data fusion model. So the multiplex network model we developed, like it is like we published a couple of years before, but still we are working on that one. So in each layer there will be one kind of data. So and then combining there, each data type has some weight, and integrating that is making the integrated layer. And then we use that integrated layer marker for the identification of the actual marker. There are some machine learning approach integrated inside of that one. So like on example, it is a complex methodology. So because the biology is very complex, human genome is very complex. So here we have used the, even the, this is existing method like the Cox regression model. So but our, we developed something like the network from the data, like the, this is the data. The network is, we use this network for as a penalty of the model, and based on that on, we have found, okay, our identifying marker is really useful. This is the behind idea. So still now we have developed different software system, and our software system is feasible for to identify and to predict the future risk of diseases. Future risk means the what will be happen in 5 years, what will be happen in 10 years or 20 years. That is the, your map, health map. So in next year. So this is the system we developed based on those idea that our algorithm developed a couple of years before. So here is like the different kind of, even the environmental information. We use 32 million patient data, so multi-omics data and clinical information, all kind of data, and integrating all data, we using the multiplex network model and also data fusion model. We have developed the system to identify the comorbidity map, the health map, like the what will be happen in your, you have some problem. So what will happen in 5 years, what will happen based on that information, what will happen in 10 years, 20 years, is like that one. Also the survival of the people. Okay, we, if we have some complexity of the biomarker, and we have the maybe the prostate or the ovarian or the breast cancer, what is the risk of the survival? So in this system we need to give only the few inputs, like the unit, we need to give the genetic testing report input, and then or any other kind of combined report in input, like of course the pre-processed data, then we can get the outcome easily. So based on this idea, we have developed three software system. So these three software system are like, yeah. So then we can use that system for predicting the diseases. This is the second part of the project. Now we are working for, okay, we have identified the biomarker. Now we are developing the sensor for the using the saliva and blood. We, similar to the type 2 diabetes testing or COVID-19 testing, or pregnancy testing. So we can develop the device, and that is we are doing now at this moment. now is like okay, so we are using the different kind of biosensor, we are wearable sensor, or are connected with the network and the machine learning algorithms, so for developing the decision support system. So this is the a lot of data, big data. So we mentioned I mentioned a couple of genomics data, metabolomics, micro this kind of data, and also wearable data, environmental data, a lot of data. So that is like using those on, and how can we use those complex data, because the now it is a little bit old report, so in 2022 now it is maybe almost 800 times of the data that can be manageable by a clinician. That means a clinician can have, even not only clinician, like any expert people, expert physician can manage some kind of data. Not all data they can manage for getting taking the decision for a patient. So in 2020, it was 200 times. Now maybe it is almost 800 times, because data is growing so fast. Genomics, clinical, and image data. So a lot of complex data. So combining all data, it is very difficult to take the decision for the physician. So now it is a big global problem. So can we develop some thing or some method, algorithm, or some system that can be helpful for the clinician, like the supportive for their to reduce their complexity in case of decision making. So this is the question. So, but how can we use this all this data for the diagnosis and like the for the prognosis of the future risk of diseases? And can we develop the automated system? That is our the question. But yeah, we are already developed in some purposes, but our generalized system, like I mentioned, it is like government proposed $35 million for remote health monitoring, integrating all this. So that is the like okay, all the data that are coming from the sensor, wearable devices, even the image. I did not mention the image. We have the project of the maybe the imaging technology. For example, I will explain that on a little bit. So all this sensor data and even the biosensor data, even clinical information, we can give input and integrating the multimodal data. So then the developing the software system and decision support system, and also multimodal large language model for generating the report, for automated report for the uh, like real-time flag or real-time report for the people. So this is the project. It is a big project. Next 7-8 years we'll run this project with the government funding. So that is like combined of a lot of things. So a small project in different people working, and combining is the final project. So now the image. So in addition to the wearable devices and sensor, we have also we are also integrating the image data like CT scan and MRI data. So I can give one example. For example, in Australia, I am giving more examples based on the Australia. In Australia, in the rural area, there is no enough CT scan and MRI machine. That is not enough. So but for example, in if someone happened stroke like that, this is if we can diagnose the stroke patient within 4 hours and take out the blood clot that is happened for stroke within that 4 hours, then it is possible to reduce the mortality and morbidity. So that is the idea. So that is like it is also funded project at this moment in extension of this one. Yeah. So in this project, the idea was okay, the data can come from the CT scan machine, and the wearable device is possible, and also the clinical information, it could come to the our server, and in the server it can run the image processing and other data, and then clinician can contact that on. The idea is like communicate and get the result with the server. And the idea behind this one, because in Australia is a big country, but the most of the clinician lives in city area, main city area. So the problem is there is no expert, even clinician, for the complex diseases in the rural area. So but if it is possible to scan in the rural area, but if it is possible to transfer the image to the city area or any cloud server for the automated generating the report, then it is feasible to take the decision for the even the general practitioners. So that is the idea of that on. So we have published a couple of paper. One of this is that on. So how we can integrate multimodal data and generating the report like image data transferring from the system, and also some input data from the people or patient or the family. It is also useful for the home based hospital but or home monitoring system. So this is like finally connecting all this data. We are developing the system that is really helpful. So now based on this idea, we are running in stroke. So since in the I mentioned in rural area of Australia and other country like in Bangladesh, there is no CT scan and MRI machine. Sorry, CT scan and MRI machine. So since there is no CT scan and MRI machine, so we are proposing alternative devices, ultrasound color Doppler imaging, and that is AI enabled. That is we are developing in our lab. So that will be helpful, and we are running the trial in the neuroscience and CMAs in Bangladesh, and using that on we can maybe it is the price is very low. Low means the like only maybe $2,000-3,000 for the device instead of the expensive MRI machine. And it is possible to use for the diagnosis. Hope it will, if it will be successful, then yeah, I'm running the clinical trial in neuroscience and CMS in Bangladesh, also in some part in Australia. So this is the overall project program. We are trying to develop some like AI-enabled devices and algorithm in our lab to solve the problem and that are related to the health. Especially these are helpful for remote monitoring, especially rural area. And in case of Bangladesh, I think that 80% people are not getting this type of support, similar to the city areas. So it will be helpful for clinical if it is all these are successful and maybe feasible in Bangladesh, then it is helpful for the other rural area, like most of the area of Bangladesh. Thank you so much. I have a lot of collaboration in Bangladesh, also many countries, including different universities. Like I studied in Cambridge, and also I have still the collaboration. I worked in Oxford University, and I was a vice chancellor fellow in Sydney University. I work in Queensland University, so and UNSW
এক মিনিট
Sydney,
সামিত, হ্যাঁ
that one I worked. So these are the main collaborators. I have also other collaboration in Bangladesh, and yeah, thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
I think I'm almost 40 minutes. So,
Hello.
so if you have any question, maybe I can discuss now, or
Yeah, sure.
we can also. I'm
Thanks a
happy
lot,
to.
Professor Dr. Mohammed Ali Moni, sir. So we have many guests currently present in our session. So if any questions from anyone, you can ask from now.
So I have a question. Can I ask?
Sure, please.
First of all, I am Dr. Mesbouddin from Bangladesh Agricultural University. Sir, I have a question to Dr. Muni sir. We are also working on the same field like bioinformatics, big data processing. So my big question is, sir, can we collaborate in some extent, and what are the procedure to start collaboration?
Okay, thank you so much. I have a lot of collaboration, and especially my best collaborator is still I see here, Professor Dr. Yusuf Bhai, and he's also now maybe currently the vice chancellor. He's the best collaborator. We are working together, so maybe we are happy to work together. You can send me email. I'm happy to contact, and yeah. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
sir.
And I
Thank
will
you, sir.
help you. Also, I have I have also collaboration with in Gazipur, Bangabandhu Agriculture University, maybe. No, the name is.
Okay, sir,
Yeah,
I
we
will
can
send you
discuss
an email.
later.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Currently, we have another two distinguished guests. One actually from Bangladesh, Professor M.A. Yusuf, sir, currently VC of Bangabandhu Digital University. And another guest, we have Nikola Kasavov, international guest. So both anyone can ask to our keynote speaker if you have any query, or it's actually open session, we can say. So any feedback or any comments or any suggestion, all we can discuss here.
I would say that that was a wonderful presentation, and it's a world-class research that Prof. Moni presented. So that's very impressive indeed. In my talk, in 3 minutes' time, I will continue this topic using different techniques, not deep neural networks, but brain-inspired neural networks, and I will emphasize also on the interpretability, explainability of the models. But again, thank you very much, Prof. Moni. That was an excellent presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor Kasaba.
Thank you so much, Professor Dr. Rashid Majumdar. Actually, I came back from the Noakhali Science and Technology University this morning. I was there in last evening for a closing ceremony. So I know actually the working pattern and the depthness of the research of Dr. Moni. We are very close and we are working for last 4 years, actually 3 to 4 years actually. So Dr. Moni, congratulations again for your research, for your collaboration. Hope to see you in new dimension in future, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Thank you
so
so much. Thank
And
you.
I would add that I'm happy for my lab to exchange some visits of Professor Moni's lab and what they do and what we can do. We can collaborate in the future. That would be a wonderful opportunity to mix our different approaches and to integrate them for the same purpose.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm happy for that one. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Nicola Kasaba.
Thanks again to all. So is there anyone from NST organizer? MIET organizer, is there anyone?
Yes, I'm here. I'm
Okay.
Sharish. I'm
Okay. So I think we can close this session now.
I'm remaining here.
Okay, so
You
next
can
is,
continue. Our next keynote species, Professor Nicola Kasabov,
okay,
and the session is chairing by Professor Dr. Ali Moni. So you can start your session because
Okay, thank you so much.
okay,
Actually, I don't-
in the previous session, the certificate is not shown right now. So our session coordinator now show the certificate of the session chair, Rashid Majumdar, and the keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Muhammad Ali Moni. So please share the certificate.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving me the floor. I would like to share the certificate at first. Can you hear me?
yeah, all we can.
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Thank you so much. So thank you so much. Give me some seconds. Nicola Kasavov, sir, can you please stop your screen?
Yes, I have.
Oh, thank you so much. Everyone can see my screen?
Yeah, we can see the screen. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So this certificate is go for Dr. Rashid Majumdar, sir. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
conducting this session. We feel honored to have you. And now I would like to share the keynote speaker certificate, Dr. Muhammad Ali Moni. Thank you so much, sir. Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much for your certificate.
Thank you, everyone. Now we will go for the next session, keynote session 4, which will conducted by Muhammad Ali sir, and the speaker is Professor Nicola Kasabov. Welcome to everyone.
So, yeah,
Thank
you
you
can
very much.
Give me
start
some
sharing.
second. I just off my screen.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now
Yeah.
you can start your session. Thank you, everyone.
So Professor Kasawat, could you please share your slide because I don't have your details, so I can maybe give the briefing. Okay, thank you so much, the organizing committee, for giving the opportunity to chairing this session for the Professor Nicola Kasab. Kasabo. Professor Nicola, could you please share the first page, first slide? Yeah, because I don't have the details. Sorry for that. Yeah. So Professor Nicola K. Kasabov is a lifetime IEEE fellow and also founding director of KEDRI and professor of knowledge and engineering. And he's professor of Auckland University of Technology, Auckland, New Zealand, and guest professor of IICT Bulgarian Academy of Science, and emeritus professor of Peking University, like top university in China, and also Dalian University in China. He is also honorary professor of Teesside University, UK, and the University of Auckland, New Zealand. And so he has a lot of expertise, experience, a lot of affiliation in different top university, and all top professor in the multimodal brain inspired AI. So I believe his presentation is very informative for us, and I'm requesting Professor Kasabov for giving his presentation, his nice talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Moni. I would say that the two talks, your talk and my talk, are in the same direction, and I think this is a good organization of the session to show complementary approaches to same problems. I will talk first about. I would like to say that the problems I will address in my talk when we have multimodal data and we want to develop a model that tells us something, explains something about personal outcome, either as a diagnosis or prognosis. I will concentrate my talk. Can you hear me?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
And you can see the slides.
Yeah.
Okay. So I will talk about the three problems of such multimodal data. And the problem first is indeed the multiple modality of data. And not only homogeneous, but heterogeneous data. The second problem I will address is the problem of early prediction of individual outcomes. And I would say that the hospitals and the cemeteries are full of late diagnosed people. How early can a system help to identify the problem and to prevent the problem? And the third point is interpretability, explainability, and it is now accepted that AI systems that are not explained well are not acceptable at all. So I think these three aspects I would like to talk about, and I will take a different approach from the traditional at the moment, and Prof. Moni also presented as a deep neural networks. I will talk about not deep neural networks, but brain-inspired architectures that are complementary to other approaches. And I think what I would say for biomedical domain, it is also not only static data that is available, like gene expression, a snapshot or image, etc., but longitudinal multimodal data sets that are captured over time, and their interaction between them is very important to capture. So complex temporal relationships between various modalities is important to capture in our models, because one modality of data may affect the other one, and the third one and such there are longitudinal multimodal data that we need to process. And current modality fusion techniques are mainly based on feature extraction from longitudinal data without capturing the interaction between the variables. And we would like to overcome this problem. Multiple modalities of data in health are, of course, the current topic, a hot topic in medicine, health, and bioinformatics, as Prof. Moni suggested. And here we have both EEG data and fMRI data collected in one device. But how do we combine them? Because they are at different spatial scale and different time scale. We have milliseconds, we have seconds, we have only the cortical area, and we have the whole brain. How do you combine that different modalities of data that have different spatial or different temporal characteristics? And here we have many modalities of brain data even collected. How do we combine them together for a better diagnosis, for better prognosis? And early prediction is indeed a very important topic. Early prediction of an individual basis for an individual, because individuals are different in terms of predicting in time the outcome, the onset of the outcome. And here we have one example of predicting psychosis. Psychosis develops over time, and there are some features called ultra high risk of psychosis, and they are well known, they are well measured based on cognitive assessments. But they are early stage, and at a later stage, this psychosis could develop. And the question is, can we use this data and predict in advance the development of the outcome of psychosis and to prevent it, rather than let it go, let it develop, and it will be too late to do anything. And psychosis is causing suicide, depression. The earlier we predict that, the better. And it is the so-called prodrome. And I will show one example of using cover techniques to predict such events at an early stage. And interpretability, explainability. We talk about gene expression data, and here we have examples of profiling one person versus the neighboring gene expression subjects that are neighboring to this person in terms of Euclidean distance or not. And here we have all these genes here, and here we have the profile of the control subject, which is the healthy one. The profiling of the diseased one is the red. And we see the profiling of the new person. And measuring this profiling of the new person, we can say that, yes, this person is prone to ultra high risk or to psychosis. And this is the psychosis data used. And here we have the bipolar data. So we can see this person, according to each of these genes that are detected as the important genes, this person is 0.17 close to the control, according to all these genes, rather than close to the bipolar. So I think this is an explanation that is needed to be built in our systems to help clinicians understand what the individual characteristics and profile is in order to predict the event. And this is, again, part of some of the research in my group. Now, indeed, what we need is new methods to be developed. We need new software, and we need identified diagnostic and prognostic markers. And of course, we need sensors to develop for these markers to help individuals to improve the understanding of their state and to help the clinicians. All these problems needs to be looked at and tackled together. So what are brain-inspired artificial intelligence models and why use them for the task? So the brain is the most complex system that is characterized by many spatial memory types, spatial, and memory, and many temporal activities. We have activities in nanoseconds, milliseconds, minutes, hours. So the brain seems to be the best machine for spatial temporal learning. And perhaps we can use the principles of the brain to build such spatial temporal machines that capture interactions between spatially distributed variables or medical sensory information over time. So that is the main idea of this approach, that we call it a brain-inspired approach. And we take a particular methods that are called spiky neural networks. And the book that was published comparatively recently, it's more 5 years now, but it's called Time Space, Spiky Neural Networks and Brain-Inspired Artificial Intelligence by Springer. That reveals this approach in more detail. I will show only a few examples and talking about the brain, how brain functions. Before we build brain-inspired structures, we need to look at how the brain functions. And what the brain does, it's actually the brain creates some trajectories that can connect clusters of neurons over time. So this is the trajectory of the knowledge, if you like, of a person looking at certain object and grasping the object and lifting the object with the motor cortex activities. So this is, of course, this knowledge is a fuzzy knowledge because when we try to do some other objects rather than cup, I think this is a similar trajectory, but not exactly the same. So this is something that we can explore in our computational models as the main principles. So knowledge is captured as spatial temporal trajectories and it is evolved. It changes all the time without actually having prescribed number of layers, because these layers and number of neurons in these clusters can evolve, can change from learning. Spiky neural networks are the kind of a term, they consider it to be the third generation of neural networks, but that's, of course, only a symbol. Information here is represented as spikes at a certain time. And here we have the biological neuron, one neuron connected to another. Any of the neuron first spikes, then the second neuron spikes. There's an association, temporal association. So the connection weight increases. So as long-term potentiation. Otherwise, the connection weight decreases. Long-term depression. So this is the idea of the spike time-dependent plasticity learning. And spiking neuron models have been developed quite a lot, starting from Hodgkin Huxley. And here is one of the most popular one, which is called integrated fire. So we have inputs that are presented as sequence of spikes. Spike is a binary unit over time, yes, no. And this is time. And when the membrane potential of this neuron increases, because it enlarges every time, this neuron emits spikes and goes to the basic level. So this is a very simple model that is realized in a very simple electrical circuit. And that is why it is not surprising that the current neuromorphic spiky neural network hardware, they have hundreds of thousands and even millions of such spiky neurons realized in one small chip, like Loihi or other systems. I'll talk about them. So spiky neural networks can offer the potential for spatial temporal data processing, because we have the spatial distribution of inputs, and the temporal interaction between them can be captured in the spiky neuron. And they also can also bring high-level functions like consciousness, if you like, to lower level genetics, because we can also interpret, or we can use the gene expression data in the neurons as another level or the quantum level of ion channels here. So we can actually bring several hierarchical levels of information processing in the brain together in these little funny spiking neurons. And spiking neural networks open the field of brain-inspired cognitive neuromorphic computing. And that is something that is, if I just cite Dharmendra Model from the IBM, he said that the goal of brain-inspired computing is to develop scalable neural network substrate while approaching fundamental limits of time, space, and energy. Yes, it is. The energy that is very minimum energy. And if we talk to spiking neural network, it has millions of times less power consumed than traditional computers solving the same problem. And I'll talk about that in a minute. How do we encoding information for the spiking neural networks from continuous information like temperature or EEG or fMRI, etc. How do we do that? Well, encoding could be in different way, either inspired by the retina, that is the threshold based. If there is an increase of signal, there is a spike. No increase, no spike, or negative spike. Or the cochlea, where we have neurons, spiky neurons that react to certain frequencies similar to how the cochlea works. Both approaches are realized in hardware. One is called silicon retina or dynamic vision sensor, and the other one is silicon cochlea. And both were realized in the Institute for Neuroinformatics, where I'm also the visiting professor there. So brain-inspired structure. I will talk one particular one, which was developed in my group, and it is called NewTube. The NewTube is structured spiking neural network, three-dimensional, according to a brain template. So every spiking neuron here corresponds to a little area of the human brain with different scalability. It's a scalable. It could be 10 million neurons, or could be 1,000 neurons, and based on the template that we use. And this spiking neural network is trained on encoded data into spikes, and the patterns, the spatial-temporal patterns that are activated in the spiking neural network during certain input data are captured here to predict event or to classify event, either for diagnosis as classification or for prognosis as a prediction. And spiking neurons has the very interesting characteristic to be able to predict the next spike in activity of even each neurons, and then totally the whole neural network. So it's a wonderful tool for predictive modeling. And how do we map data into spiking neural network, the three-dimensional? We can take a template, and we can use this template to map it into the brain template to the neural network. Well, of course, I would say that this is not new approach, and we can go back to self-organizing maps, etc., where there are also topological templates. And the system works like inputs are entered here, and connections are changed based on spike time-dependent plasticity, and these patterns that are captured are classified in another spiking neural network classifier or predicted for future events. And as you can see, that this structure doesn't have a particular number of layers or number of neurons in each layer. It is self-organizing all the time based on the data, and it is also evolving, because input data comes here, and we can see connection weights change, and we can observe that this is no more the black box. We can observe the patterns that are created, and we can explain what the meaning of these patterns is in terms of the disease, that the data, for example, data of depression versus data of control, data of psychosis versus data of control, data of remittance, people who from say ultra high, they move to control, etc. So we can explain what happens in the human brain in a certain way during this using this technique. We can also structure the one neural network based on the MRI, personal MRI. So we take the personal MRI and we can use this personal MRI to structure the three-dimensional, specific, individual, personalized model, and we can train it on this personalized data. And we can see that in this paper that we have published in scientific reports, the EEG is enough to predict epilepsy. And we can also make the neurons, the areas, they predict their behavior in terms of spiking activity in a short time ahead. So this is amazing ability of the spiking neural networks of predicting. Spiking neural networks, as I said, can be used to integrate different modalities of data. Here we have fMRI, for example, and DTI. DTI shows the direction of the activities within the brain. And if we make personalized models, person one, person two, and person thousands of persons, we have a new person, we can connect, we can compare this person's connectivity of the neurons activity to the previous one and find, for example, KNN, find the closest to predict the output of this person. So we can integrate here space-time, which is the fMRI, and also direction, not only for brain data, but for any data, space-time and direction. And we can explain how this model actually is clustered in terms of importance of input variables that are mapped into certain location of the spiking neural network that correspond to the location in the brain or the location in the space or in the environment. And we can find the dynamic interaction between these variables is strength between these variables over time. So these two variables are very important and they are dependent on each other. Other variables are not important, and these variables could be used as markers. And we can also extract the so-called fuzzy spatial temporal rules when a system is trained on certain class data, and then we enter another class, for example, another movement, or third class, for example, taking a glass or writing a letter or reading something, and we can extract the rules that can show the change in the connectivity. So the change is also represented as over time. We have activity of different types. Areas of the spiking neural network, they correspond to areas of the brain, the more active or less active, and we can see the difference when we do it for A, one movement after another, B, C, and that is represented also as fuzzy spatial temporal rule. No, we talk about spatial temporal rules. And designing applications, and I'll talk about few applications, is indeed to capture some data and to integrate this data in the spiking neural network to use it as a classifier or predictor. For example, one application is indeed predicting psychosis predicting dementia, the onset of dementia. We use the Sydney mass data that has 2 years measurement of multimodal data. Here we have MRI only, and if we use only actually 4 years data, if we use only 2 years data, we can predict Alzheimer, we can predict mild cognitive impairment with a 91% accuracy. For classification, we can achieve 95% accuracy. And 4 years ahead, if we use only 2 years data and predict 4 years ahead, the onset of dementia is 73%, much better than any other techniques that are used. And we can combine here different variables like clinical, genetic, and MRI. Here we have another case study, which is called computational neurogenetic modeling for diagnosis prognosis in mental health. And we have data that was collected in Singapore. That is a multimodal data having different modalities, and this is the team that is integrated Singapore, New Zealand, and the NTU. And here we have different types of integration of data: early, middle, and late integration and fusion. We can see that if we use the integrated data, we can actually predict much better the say causes 6 months ahead. These are different methods used as well. So we can, as I said, find some interaction between different modalities through the spiky neural network connectivity. An interaction between social and cognitive data was one of the topics that was developed and published. And understanding and explaining is important for this, explaining also the interaction in time. And this is the classification results when we use both modalities. We can see what accuracy we can have to predict ahead, control, remission, and maintain in terms of psychosis. And another case study, I don't have time to talk much about that, but it is a case study that is based on personalized predictive modeling of individual risk of stroke. Individual risk of stroke is a severe, stroke is a severe disease that depends not only on the individual, for example, the age, the gender, the history of stroke, overweight, older, smoker, younger, diabetic, medication, etc. So these are also personalized, personal information. But it depends also on the climate. It depends on the change in temperature, the wind speed, the pollution, the solar eruption, etc. How can we combine all these parameters, all these variables together to make a better individual prediction, individual model to predict the risk of stroke? And the risk of stroke can be predicted. And there is a publication by neuroscientists. They say that 90% of stroke can be predicted individually, because if you have a model that is a regression model or using all these variables, that won't be very accurate. So one measure doesn't fit all. Well, it may fit them but to 70%. And we can see here that using individual modeling, and here I have the what parameters I used as environmental parameters. And also we also include some particles of pollution. All this combination is very important to capture over time. And we use longitudinal data of few months before the stroke has occurred from historical data to make a model for one person and to be able to predict whether maybe on the next day or the next hour, this person may have a risk of stroke. And here we have some results that show that if we have 1 day prediction early, the data that we have used are data collected in Auckland, longitudinal data, and we have 95% accuracy to predict stroke. 1 day ahead, 6 days ahead, less. 11 days ahead, of course, is not so easy, but still 70% accuracy. And we can see that other methods, traditional machine learning methods, that they fail. And why is that? Because we can see that the spiky neural network captured interaction between different environmental variables for this class of subjects, because we build this model based on the similar parameters, the clinical and personalized parameters. We select the similar cases. For example, this may be a cluster of 20 or 50 people that are similar to the new person. and these are the learned connections between the neurons in the neural tube structure that shows the dynamic interaction between these variables. If one is increasing, the other one is increasing, or the other way around. So and we can see here what variables are more important based on the impact of the cluster. So we can see that some of the variables are important, and also solar eruption. And now I think we have a high solar eruption at the moment in the world, especially in our area. But that's also a very important factor that can be captured in such model. Now, talking about these computational models, how do we implement them? How do we realize them? So we have two approaches. One is software, the other one is hardware. Of course, they can be combined. Once we develop a let's say, spiky neural network software model that has achieved good accuracy of modeling, of prediction, and classification, we can also implement this model on a particular hardware that is very low, that's very efficient, low power and high efficiency, like spiky neural networks. So I will talk about two types of systems developed in my group. And they are available publicly, free. One is called NewTube M2 for NewTube MATLAB version 2 now we have. And the other version is NewTube Python. We have a Python version of NewTube, all available free. And when I talk about NewTube as an architecture, as a framework, here we have the implementation of NewTube. And I would say that from time to time, I'm surprised that I see people from other countries have developed their own implementation of NewTube. And I find that the paper in some journals. So anyway, so these are two implementations that are available to use. And here we have another software that was recently developed called NeuroGEMS, a neurogenetic multimodal modeling system for personalized modeling of disease prediction. And I'll talk about them in a minute, but they are available here from these websites. And I will send a PDF file of this presentation to the organizer. So anybody who is interested to have this presentation, they can actually request it from either from me or from the organizers of the conference. So here we have the environment for the NewTube that is, of course, optional virtual reality visualization, as I said. And here we have modules that are can be activated at the moment as a publicly available system. We have only the first module that is sufficient to develop a system, but we also have versions that can be run on neuromorphic hardware like Spinnaker, small board, or Spinnaker large board. And this large board Spinnaker can run 100,000 spiky neurons at a millisecond level. So we can actually get results at millisecond using this board. If we need that, otherwise, using the laptops that are, of course, high power consuming and 1,000 times higher than the Spinnaker neuromorphic, we can still get some results as modeling results, of course. And here's the explanation of how NewTube works. We have this is the software that we have the menu. We can enter data, and we can choose what the parameters of the model we have. How many neurons we have. But we can have from, let's say, 100 to 100 billion. Of course, if you can run that on this computer, it's scalable. And we can use different templates to structure the spiky neurons, or we can let the system choose how to structure it based on some preliminary analysis of the data. And the principle, of course, is simple. The similar data we have temporal data. The closer these variables will be allocated in the three-dimensional space. And this is not a new principle. This is the self-organizing maps also use this way as well. And we can have the dynamic visualization of what happened here And all these can be run and experimented in both in MATLAB version or in Python version. YouTube is used quite broadly in many countries. Of course, we have also, I think some people in Bangladesh are using that. I don't know whether that's it's shown here. Yes, it is shown here, but more than 50 countries are using YouTube for different applications and also developing their own version. So here is the so-called NeuroGems. NeuroGems is, as I said, multimodal system. You can load data sets from different modalities. I mean, it could be clinical, could be cognitive, genetic, neuroimaging, different modalities, and you can choose which option you want to use for merging these modalities. Do you want to have an early integration? Do you have an intermediate integration, late integration? Of course, with feature selection, without feature selection, all this is available as functions in this software. And it can be downloaded from this website. So the software, of course, first of all, multimodal fusion, interpretability. We have rule extraction and dynamic graph shown, efficient database management, intuitive model creation. I think that could be used by non-computer scientists. Streaming experimentation. It can be as interpreter can run in an interactive mode. We have good data visualization, and my developers say your fingertips. I don't know what it means anyway, but they are software developers. They probably knew what it means. Now, hardware implementation. Hardware implementation of spiky neural networks is called neuromorphic hardware. Neuromorphic hardware, of course, we can implement this spiky neural networks either in the von Neumann architectures like this laptop, or in a neuromorphic architecture. So this is Jonathan Nassif, who also developed the first von Neumann based machine. But we can also use a neuromorphic architecture where neuromorphic architecture doesn't use bits, but it uses spikes. Spikes are bits at a certain time. And this time doesn't have to be recorded as an additional parameter. No, this time is learned in the neural network structure. Similar to the brain, we don't know exactly what time we have learned what in the brain, but it is there, and if we can recall it. We can also use quantum computers to implement that using qubits. These are bits in a superposition. So we all talk about bits, either static or spiking or qubit. All these are different principles of implementation of spiking neural networks. And the spiking neural networks architectures and the hardware has been developed for a long time now. We have the Carver MIET. We have Steve Furber from Manchester University who developed the spin archer. We have University of Zurich with Giacomo Indiveri and Toby Delbrook, DVS. Now we have IBM True North that has developed the so-called developed True North with a very powerful neuromorphic system. And the latest one, the new kit on the block is Intel Loihi. Of course, China develops quite a lot of chips, neuromorphic chips. And one of them is called Darwin, the Darwin mouse, actually. And the other one is Yantic. So neuromorphic chips are highly and actively developed in China as well. And here we have a few comparison between the neuromorphic systems like SpinArcher and IBM True North, Intel Loihi, and we have also BrainScale, another neuromorphic device. So the SpinArcher has 100 million neurons in this rack, spiky neurons that can be used remotely as well. What is the future of bio-inspired, brain-inspired AI? The future is further integrating genetic information into the spiking activity, because there is quite a lot of information about that. We know what genes activate what part of the brain. It's not still in our model. And here you go to the network for Alzheimer's disease, well known. We haven't done that yet. Well, we can build some hybrid systems between spiking neural networks here and some other computational models like echo-state network reservoir for classification, or dynamic evolving neurophysical inference systems for prediction. So the features extracted from the spiking neural network tube that are capturing some temporal interaction between the variables can be used in another device. And this device here is a quantum computer classifier, and that's a research that we have done recently using the output from YouTube in a quantum classifier to achieve some advantages. Having said that, what is the future towards brain-inspired conscious machines? And we can see that there is one company that is developing this called Consume. My company, Knowledge Engineering, is also working towards in collaboration with Consume for developing the next kind of stage of brain-inspired systems that should be, and may be conscious machines. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Professor Kasabov. It's a really nice presentation, and it's really important for our participant students and also the senior people. So do you have any question from the audience? Dear audience, do you have any questions?
I have a question to the
So,
respected Professor Nicola Kasabov. Because you already mentioned that it is not, you are not already know that NeuroCube is not yet not used in BD. So how can it is too much available for how can we can get these kinds of tool, and how can we use these tools in our country and for our
Yeah,
students?
you can.
And what is
The
your
answer is
suggestion
very
for
simple.
the
The answer is very
creators?
simple. You can download the tools from the website.
Can you hear
and
me?
we have it available there.
yeah.
And we have also people from India, from Bangladesh. I think this is used in Bangladesh because we had some students there,
Yep.
and in many other countries. And you can get some help if you need. You can download the tool. It is self-explanatory, and you can start using it. If you have some problems, you just send me a message, or I will direct you to the software developers that they can help you. Definitely, you can download it now, and I will send my presentation to the organizers so they can actually distribute it to everybody, and the websites, the links are there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
Professor.
Yeah. Is there any question from the audience? Maybe we are already time out. So I have a couple of questions to the Professor Kasabov. Actually, it's not like technical part. So is there any way to work together with your company? Like you mentioned you have also involved in a company, and also, yeah, you have own company.
The answer is yes.
So that is great. So
And
like
the answer is
maybe
yes, with pleasure, because I have seen your presentation. I think it could be of mutual benefit. Absolutely, yes.
yeah. Also, we are thinking to apply a couple of grants like ARC. Maybe you already know about the Australian ARC, Australian Research Council, for the collaboration with the industry, and industry should be from Australia and New Zealand. So your company is based on New Zealand, or?
My company is based in New Zealand. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that is great. Okay, I will contact you. So, and
Yeah.
also, I have a lot of collaboration in Bangladesh. So maybe many students maybe who are not asking question, but they are interested about your research. So it is a great opportunity to make the collaboration. Also, a lot of software engineer from this like seminar, this conference will contact with you maybe for getting some support from your side and working together.
Thank you very much, Prof. Moni, and I'm looking forward to collaborating with your group.
Okay,
Definitely.
thank you so much. So now maybe we can finish. If anyone has any further question, you can ask or you can send an email to the Professor Kasabov, and maybe his presentation is really interesting and helpful for us. So maybe we can finish the conversation with the Professor Nicola Kasabov. So thank you. So is there an, yeah.
Thank
Thanks.
you so much, sir. So now I just want to share the certificate to the session chair and the speaker. So everyone can see my screen.
Yes, we can see the screen. Yes.
Okay, this certificate is for the session chair, Dr. Muhammad Ali Moni. Thank you so much, sir, for conducting this session as a session chair. And this certificate is for the speaker, Professor
Thank
Nicola
you so
Kasabov.
much.
Thank you so much, sir. We are feel honored to have you. Thank you so much for your nice speech and presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So already for the next session, the speaker, Professor Mohammed Slim Aluni, already joined with us. Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. Thank you.
Hello, sir. Nice to meet you.
Hi,
This is
how are you?
Tanzina Fatima Proma, the session coordinator of this session. And the session chair is Professor Amjad, sir. He is joined with us physically and also online, through online. I just give the floor to the Amjad, sir. Sir, please come.
Thank you, everyone, for joining this session. I'm Dr. Muhammad Amjad Hussain. Now I'm requesting our invited speaker, keynote speaker, Professor Muhammad Salim Aulani, for presenting your valuable speech for our audience. I want to share some information about our keynote speaker. He is a very renowned researcher, and his citation more than 1 lakh. It is very amazing, very interesting for us. I hope our audience will get very good information from this session. I'm requesting our keynote speaker to start your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Amjad, for the invitation. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to present some of our research activities to your audience. So let me share my screen.
Haji, we can see your slide now.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. So my talk is about, let me try to go to full screen because this is not, okay, here we go. So my talk is about, you know, technologies and new trends towards connecting the remaining 3 billion. Uh, as you may know, currently worldwide, 5G is being basically deployed everywhere. I'm sure in Bangladesh, at least some of the big cities are probably already benefiting from 5G. But from a research perspective, over the last few years, already the research community in wireless communication networks has started looking at beyond 5G and 6G. And the main effort have been focusing on how to, let's say, push the envelope, how to kind of further improve performance of 5G by going for higher speed, lower latency, higher density of connected IoT devices. And that has been, as I said, the main kind of, let's say, research efforts in this beyond 5G era. However, these 6G networks that are supposed or expected to be deployed by the end of this decade, early next decade, have to solve some extra problems. One of them is being illustrated in this map that is being presented here, showing just as an example with a little bit of an outdatedness here in terms of how recent is this map. The basically kind of a 4G deployment worldwide, which, as you can see, is still lagging. Essentially, based on the most recent statistics I'm aware of, we still live in a world where about 1/3 of the world population, roughly 2 billion people, are still unconnected. So there is still a long way to go to give opportunity and give the same, let's say, level of connectivity worldwide so that everyone can benefit from the internet and all possibilities that internet can offer. The reasons are many. We'll focus on one of them down the road here in this talk. But bottom line, most of these people that are unconnected are living in rural areas, are living in developing countries, are living in low-income neighborhood. And 6G should try to address this issue, and among many other things, 6G should be more digitally inclusive, should kind of, let's say, mitigate this connectivity or digital divide, which COVID showed us is, in a way, one of the modern phase of inequality between the have and have not in this digital context. And also, and that's in a way connected to this theme, 6G has to be resilient, robust, and dependable because we rely so much on our phone these days that we cannot afford anymore to have an outage or to have kind of a disconnection. We need to make sure that we are always able to connect and always to use our phone for a variety of day-to-day operations. And research in this area of connecting the unconnected is linked to many other relevant topics. For instance, we tend to believe that even those of us who are living in connected environment, that it's just a problem that is affecting, let's say, rural areas and maybe only low-income neighborhood. But the reality is, anywhere in the world, natural disaster or man-made catastrophe can happen, and basically we can be dealing with a connecting unconnected type of problem overnight, where you need to connect basically tens of thousands or even more people, and you need to bring connectivity typically from the sky or the space, as we'll talk about later on, for first responders and survivors. So that's kind of a post-disaster slash emergency type communication. Exploration is another interesting application. You send explorer or scientists in the Amazon or in the Antarctica or the jungle, and you want them to stream information real time. That's connecting the unconnected type of problems. Military missions tend also to operate in an environment that are not necessarily very well connected. IoT everywhere is an important other application in the sense that although I have been focusing in my talk so far on just talking about connecting people, the reality is we want to also connect uncovered or underserved areas because we want to connect all kind of devices, all kind of sensors, actuators, IoT type of machines everywhere for a variety of applications, let's say in smart agriculture or environmental monitoring. So that's also under the umbrella of Connected and Connected. In a very crowded environment, especially special events, final of a cricket match or a football match or a concert, you may end up having a situation where the capacity is not enough based on regular network capabilities, and you end up having a lot of unconnected people that you need to connect through basically offloading or extra network capabilities coming from, let's say again, the sky, as we'll see later on. And finally, transportation system or emerging transportation systems, such as recently there has been quite a bit of interest or discussion on urban aerial mobility type of deployment, or let's call them flying taxis. These are basically autonomous vehicle operating at or flying at roughly a couple of 100 meters or a few 100 meters, and basically these type of drones that are carrying people or goods need also to be connected, and we need to look at alternative solutions to the classical connectivity coming from the ground. And finally, maritime connectivity, connecting boats, ships all over the globe. And as you know, the globe is covered 70% by water and oceans, so there is quite a bit to cover. So the main kind of, let's say, the starting point of all this discussion is what I call the backhaul challenge that is illustrated in the graph that you see in front of you. So when you look at the quality of experience as function of the cost per user, focusing on low population density areas, you notice that when we talk about optical fiber cable, which are the main engine behind internet deployment in highly dense urban environment, these kind of solutions, although is good from a quality perspective, is very expensive in the sense that it's expensive for in particular for this scenario of low population density area, in the sense that it doesn't make much business sense to dig and lay hundreds, if not thousands of kilometers of optical fiber cable to reach these, let's say, remote, low density, basically areas that are often hard to reach and often low income. Same for geosatellites, the classical geosatellites. While they are very good for TV broadcasting type of application, one-way TV broadcasting, one kind of application from a cost perspective, they are still very expensive for two-way internet browsing. So really what we are trying to target is this upper left corner, what is called here in this diagram, global connectivity holy grail, which is how can we provide high quality of experience to users that happen to live in low population, hard to reach density areas. In order to kind of achieve this, kind of very visionary statement made by Tesla 100 years ago. If you read carefully the statement made by Tesla, you can see really that he was already thinking in a 5G, 6G term by using terms such as inexpensive receiver, allowing you to call anywhere on land, on sea, however distance you are. So really, this is kind of an amazing statement made by Tesla, again, a decade ago, that kind of describe what we are trying to achieve today. So, I mean, the way you can do that is by designing your network in a completely opposite way, the way you do it in, let's say, a highly dense urban environment where, as you may know, you kind of densify the network. That's a jargon that we use, or the concept we use. What we mean by that, we go for very small cells. We aggressively reuse the spectrum to kind of increase the capacity of these networks. But when the population density is very low, what you really want to do is to gain an altitude to create basically this macro cell, these super macro cells, where with a single piece of equipment attached to a single base stations, you can cover as much as possible. So one way to do that is to recycle TV towers, which are typically strategically located on the top of hills and mountains in many cities. And basically, you want to reuse these TV towers to create these tens of kilometers of macro cell. One of my former postdoc, Dr. Ammar Al-Thalu, looked at this problem, and we focused on a particular province in Ethiopia that is kind of illustrated in this map here with the density population kind of shown in blue, being representing high density population, green, medium density population, yellow, low population density. We have two base stations in red. With that, the current connectivity rate is just 5%. Now, if you choose to, after identifying from the ITU database these 3 TV towers, and if you choose to kind of allocate or attach to these TV tower base stations, right away we can go from 5% to roughly 15%. Now, if you move slightly one of these TV towers in order to better match density population on the ground, you can go all the way 20%. So obviously, you're not solving the problem, but just with this very simple solution, by gaining an altitude, adding a little bit of extra base station at the right height, you can connect 15% more people in this particular scenario. Now, that's obviously not enough. How can I gain more in terms of coverage? By going even higher, higher than this TV tower, and by starting basically relying on what we can call towers in the sky or in the space. So basically aerial-based stations. One example of doing that is to use these tether balloons or tether aerostat or tether blimps, or whatever you want to call them. These are lighter than air type of flying platforms. They can be operating at few hundred all the way to a couple of kilometers type of altitude. They have a tether or a cable connecting them to the ground for stability, for power supply, and for backhaul connectivity by inserting a fiber optic in this cable. And with that, you can attach to this payload or the payload of this flying platform or base station that can give you, these tens of kilometers of coverage thanks to this kind of deployment. So we looked at this kind of problem. Let's assume, for example, you have a disaster in this particular zone. You have people that are on the ground that have been disconnected because, let's say the base station are not operational anymore. So you send drones. These drones are going to be acting as flying base stations. This drone has to be backhauled because at the end of the day, they are just acting as relay to this, let's say, tether balloon on the edge of this disaster zone. And the problem we try to look at here is it's a downlink problem, let's say, for this problem that we solved. An association, like, first of all, a placement problem. Where should we place this drone given the user distributed on the ground? And then how should we associate these drones to the user on the ground and to the balloons? And finally, what kind of power level should the drones allocate to these different users? So it's kind of a complex optimization problem that has been solved using an iterative approach. And then for the basically location of the drone, we use shrink and realigning process. And the optimization was done based on the fact that we want to maximize the sum rate. It's a two-hop problem. We have a backhaul to a drone and a drone to a user, and that's kind of our data rate utility. And the constraint are the usual constraints as of power constraint, access link association constraint, and backholding association constraints. Again, using an iterative approach, we are able to solve this problem by, first of all, finding the optimal location of these UAVs, then the association between the ground users and the balloons to these UAVs, and eventually power allocations. If you look at the end results, the benchmark is, of course, if you do nothing, which is just a random association with random power, or with uniform power, let's say, sorry, and you end up having this kind of black benchmark. Now, if you optimize your associations and the placement of the drone, but keep uniform power, you get the kind of sum rate in red, so there's a slight improvement. Now, if you deploy the full solution with the right or the optimal association, the optimal power allocation also, you end up having the best possible total data rate. So, of course, you can go for a further height. How can you do that? By gaining further in altitude, relying on this emerging paradigm known as high altitude platform station, known also as high altitude pseudo-satellites, or in short, HAPS. These are, again, flying platform operating in the stratosphere, roughly at 20-kilometer altitude, way above regular airline traffic operating at 10, 12-kilometer altitude. So these kind of HAPs that can come in different shape and forms. They can be in the form of balloon or airship slash aerostat, or even a fixed wing glider or aircraft. These type of platform can give you really this super macro cell from the sky. So I mean, this is a typical illustration of how hubs operate. Again, they are operating in the stratospheres. They can actually be used for a variety of application, connectivity of people and IoT device, illustrated in green here. But their payload can carry, of course, also all kind of other sensors, such as a camera, a LiDAR, a radar, for, let's say, border control, for environment monitoring, for water level kind of, again, monitoring. They're acting as relay, so that's the access part, but they are kind of always equipped with a feeder link. The feeder link can be connected to the sky through a satellite connectivity, or to the ground through optical gateway stations. As we'll see later on, the vision is maybe to use free space optics as a feeder link to these hubs. But that's kind of your typical hubs deployment that people are envisioning to connect people over large areas. But of course, you can get bigger coverage or higher coverage by gaining further altitude and going for the space beyond the air. And then we start talking about satellite kind of communication, which are booming, as we know these days, thanks to the ability now to massively produce satellite at a relatively lower cost. And you have all this variety of family of satellite starting from low Earth orbit, operating at a few hundred kilometers orbit altitude, all the way to classical geostationary satellite operating at 35,000 kilometers. So all of these kind of family of satellites are evolving and are progressing and are there to provide more and more global connectivity. Now, in my own work, I tend to believe that although satellite, of course, which are the most popular type of deployment these days, are very important, are going to solve a lot of the problems. But in my view, we should not ignore HAPS. HAPS come with a lot of advantage. Let me focus on at least two of them. Number one is the fact that one of the main paradigm that satellites are trying to solve is the so-called direct to regular phone. By regular phone, I mean your standard 4G, 5G, 6G phone, the standard kind of Samsung or Huawei or basically Apple phone that you use in your daily life. You want that same phone not only to connect to your classical base station on the ground, but also connect, and by connect, I mean not only text, but just really use a full high-speed connection with the satellites. That's a challenging problem that everyone's trying to solve. Whereas with the HAPS, this comes very naturally. The budget link is much more favorable. We are operating at 20-kilometer altitude rather than few 100-kilometer altitude, which means that you can really achieve relatively easy connectivity to these regular phones. So that's, to me, an advantage that is very important. And the second big advantage is at the end of the day, these kind of flying platform are aircraft. They go or basically balloon or whatever it is. In other words, they just don't. We don't launch them and forget about them like we do with satellites, and then eventually these satellites become a part of the space debris that we have to deal with. These kind of hubs are flying platform that go there, stay for a few weeks, maybe few months in the air, and then they come back. So we can maintain the equipment, we can maintain the aircraft itself, we can upgrade equipment, and at the end of the day, we can retire this equipment on the ground. We don't have to forget about it or try to bring it back to the ground. So these are two examples that I'm kind of mentioning to show the great benefit that HAPS can bring to the table. In other words, we live in a world where basically population density is not constant. Actually, it's well known that our world is characterized by this well-known population density law that you can see in many papers and documentation about this kind of aspect. And we follow a so-called power law, where dense population is very high in urban downtown type of areas, and as you move away from these downtowns, the population density decrease according to this power law. So similarly, if you want to cover this kind of variable and decreasing population density, you want to make your base station increase in altitude. So in other words, while it makes sense to develop or deploy a base station on the top of just simple towers when you are in urban environment, as you move away to suburban and eventually deep rural areas, you need to go to higher and higher base station. And HAPS is somehow ubiquitous type of solution in the sense that with beamforming capabilities can be used for a variety of basically situation covering the rural area, but also offloading in an urban environment, given that it can give you few tens of kilometers of radius. Whereas satellite probably are the best and essentially the unique solution for deep rural type of coverage. So actually, to illustrate that, a few years ago, we kind of wrote this paper where we proposed a kind of a multi-tier type of network deployment. So we assume that we have users on the ground that are following a power law, in the sense there is a higher number of users near the kind of urban environment, and as you move away, the basically number of users are decreasing, and then and their density is decreasing, and then to cover this user, we kind of deployed a multi-tier aerial solution, so it's not a single tier, and we compare these kind of multi-tier solutions to a single tier using a stochastic geometry approach, assuming that the density of this aerial base station is also decreasing according to a power law, according to an exponential, the same way we assume that this density population is decreasing according to an exponential. So that's the density of user that is decreasing, the density of drone also at each layer that is decreasing according to different rates. And then we looked at different solution, a multi-tier versus a single tier type of solution. So if we deploy all these drones in one tier at 50-meter altitude with a certain kind of density decrease rate, we have this kind of course, for all the solution, we keep the same number of density of UAVs. That's the kind of coverage probability we get. As you see, as you increase the height of these drones, you get better and better quality of coverage. But actually, the ultimate solution is provided by a 3-tier solution where you put the drone at 3 altitude. That's the one that gives the best kind of coverage. And of course, if you can ignore the fact that the user density is decreasing and deploying this drone uniformly, then obviously you get a very poor coverage. So it's very important to try again to place your base station according to the density of user on the ground. And this can be illustrated further by this curve showing the coverage probability as far as the distance between typical user and the origin, let's say the downtown area. Uniform solution is really the bad way to go. You need to kind of match distribution of users on the ground by kind of changing the distribution of base station in the air. A single tier type of solution, of course, is better than the ground and is better than a uniform solution. So these are one tier with an exponentially decreasing density of user in the air. But the ultimate solution is a solution where it is in the air, it is with a decreasing density of base station, but it's also using a multi-tier solution, in this case, a 3-tier solution. This is just kind of a baby case to illustrate the fact that we need to use different layers to cover different density population on the ground, and using just a single solution or single layer is not the way to go. Now, by the way, this HAPS type of paradigm has been validated last decade. There was 2 very important projects. One launched at that time by Facebook called Aquila drone, and the other one launched by Google called the Loon balloons. Both were able to operate. Loon in particular had commercial deployment in Kenya and in Peru, in the sense that there was commercial cellular network that basically used these balloons as base station. At that time, the business case was not very strong, so these 2 projects were kind of discontinued. But from an experimental validation, technical validation of cellular connectivity from the sky, we can say that it was a success. And more recently, as part of collaboration with Dutch Telecom, with Stratospheric Platform, which is startup based in UK, we contribute to an experiment showing that indeed you can do a 5G connection from the sky. Many other experiments have been done since then. So basically, you have this kind of experiment where 5G link was established over a large area. As a very simple example, you can see here a terrestrial base station and an aerial base station connected to a car. This car was moving away from these 2 base stations. And as you see, the blue connection, which is a terrestrial connection, at some point when the car was getting very far away, the quality of the throughput and the spectral efficiency was going down, whereas the purple connection coming from the sky kept having a very good throughput all the way to actually even maritime and the helicopter that were very far from the center of the base station, basically in the air, which kind of again validate the fact that connectivity from the sky is the way to go to create these big coverage zones. Now, let's see some of the research activities being pursued in this framework. Bottom line, the paradigm we are talking about, we have user on the ground. These users have the ability to connect either to a terrestrial base station or to a HAPS, depending on they are. And then, of course, the HAPS itself is backhauled, let's say in this case, by connection through a satellite. And the question you are asking yourself typically is, again, an association problem. How should I connect on the ground to a base station that is close by or to an aerial base station which is connected to a drone? So the problem was, again, formulated as a sum rate maximization problem. And we kind of here basically connect either to the ground or to the hubs according to these parameters, and we have to find these parameters. So it's a complex, non-convex, and discrete optimization problem that is hard to solve. But in this paper published last year, we kind of developed an iterative approach to solve this problem and solve it from an association perspective, power allocation, and weight vector also type of solution. So that's kind of the optimization problem that we are trying to maximize the minimum of the 2 hubs rate with this payload constraint to the full capacity of use that we can connect in base stations, and then the association as well as a power constraint. The solution was iterative, kind of we start with the use association scheme, and then adopt like basically a beamforming solution. We see if we have a good solution or not, and you keep iterating until you converge to a stable solution. Now the solution that we were able to develop was able to basically, if you depending on the number of users, we're able to scale and to show that we get basically the optimal type of rate. And it's important actually to kind of take into account all the parameters to be able to follow the trends and optimize even in with a big power. And this is actually one of the key messages we want to convey. So here what we did is a downlink again association. We looked at how the impact of the power provided from the hubs improve the quality of connection on the ground. So we have here deployment where we have kind of an urban environment, suburban environment, and some rural area around these 2 environments. We have a hubs that's trying to connect these food area, and on the ground we have some base station, this triangle in black, and the user in blue are basically trying to see where they should connect. So basically the curve here, the magenta or purple type of circles are explaining how these users are able to find proper connectivity from the ground. Unfortunately here, because of the lack of power coming from the hubs, only one user is able to connect to a hubs. As you increase the power coming from the hubs, you are able to start connecting more and more rural users. Eventually, if the level of power coming from a hubs is very high, not only you are able to connect all the rural users, but actually turns out that you are able to give better opportunity even for some of the users in this urban and suburban environment, because they may be in a not spot or in a spot that is obstructed from basically the close by base stations. So in a way, hubs here, or let's say this kind of deployment is showing that hubs can be used not only to connect the unconnected, but also super connect the connected and give better opportunity for users who are already connected to connect them to a better solution that can give them a higher data rate. So this kind of study has been generalized or extended to multiple hubs type of basically deployment. And we have an even bigger area here. We have 3 hubs that has been kind of deployed on this anti-diagonal. And we chose to put 1 hubs in the center, 1 hubs on the top of this suburban area, another hubs on the top of this urban area. And as you see, the more hubs you deploy, the better is your CDF, in the sense that the probability that your minimum SINR exceeds the threshold tends to be better and better. So the probability that the SINR falls below threshold becomes lower and lower. That's kind of an outage probability, if you will. That's basically improving as you increase the number of hubs. So if you kind of dig more and see how the connections are happening, you see basically that initially most of the users, when you don't have hubs, don't have any other choice but to connect to the ground users, to the ground base stations in purple. As you increase the number of hubs, you see here in green the users are served by the hubs, and you keep increasing. And you see the hubs number 2 is in blue, so you connect the extra users. Hubs 3 is in red, and you are able to have some blue, some green, and some red. So not only you are connecting more users, your overall sum rate is increasing, but you are able to connect a variety of users in rural and urban environment thanks to these three, let's say, HAPS deployment capability. Now, just to conclude on this, we kind of went, this type of optimization can be a little bit complex. So my student Shasha Liu, under the mentorship of Professor Haitham Bahrouj, who used to be a research scientist in KAUST, who's now a professor in US in Sharjah, developed this kind of basically deep neural network base of solution. So here the idea was to train this network to do the right association. We didn't do any power allocation here, but just want to benchmark and see how well we can do just kind of a training approach or machine learning based approach. And we used the well-known ensembling deep neural network. As you know, if you go for a big deep neural network, you end up having this overfitting type of limitation. Rather, we use Q, deep neural network in parallel, and we make them work again simultaneously, and each one can give one solution, and then we select the best possible solution based on a single realization. To make a long story short, it turns out that indeed, basically, machine learning based approach can be better from a performance and from I would say even a complexity perspective. So here we are showing the sum rate as function of the maximum power for a different type of solution. One that is based just on distance, one on the basically quality of the channel. The blue one is based on this kind of classical optimization approach. Machine learning DNN give you, of course, here a better solution. You do ensemble DNN with 8 type of selection type of deployment, give you an even better performance. And then if you look at, again, the performance of the sum rate as function number of users, again, an ensemble DNN solution gives you always a better performance than just single DNN, and always better than classical, basically, analytical, let's say, optimization approach. And in terms of running time offline, you see the big gain that you get by this machine learning solution. You are gaining not only in sum rate, but you are gaining in the running time, which is much faster with this solution compared to classical optimization approach. Now, I would like to conclude my talk to kind of combine this with another emerging technology that is more mature, but it's finding or being revived in the context of aerial and space communication. And I'm talking about free space optics, a technology that has been developed decades ago for point-to-point communication that is known to suffer from, like weather, being very sensitive to weather condition, to let's say, atmospheric turbulence. But in the context of air and space communication, there is one big limitation that one has to deal with, which is a so-called SWAP limitation or SWAP constraint. SWAP stands for essentially size, weight, and power constraint. Anything you try to lift becomes very expensive if they have a big size, a big weight, or require a lot of power. And in this context, free space optics can be or can bring great advantages compared to any kind of RF solution, on the top of the fact that they allow us to operate in a completely abundant and congested optical band in comparison to anything that will be operating in the congested RF band that we are trying to deploy for the feeder links. In other words, the kind of paradigm we are looking at aerial platform attached to satellite or HAPS, type of basically aerial platform. In one side, you want to have RF solution that connect the ground users, through multi-beam technologies that have variable dynamic beam kind of type of technology, where this beam move around depending on traffic density on the ground, and then kind of allow user to connect to this flying platform, let's say the satellite in this case. And then you need to kind of have a feeder link that connects the satellite to the ground. Currently, we are using Ka band, a band that is quite congested, a band that is in competition now between cellular technology, let's say, technology or deployment and satellite deployment. And also the Ka band we want maybe to use in the future for the user links, for the user link are using currently Ku band. So in other words, the plan or this vision for free space optic is to start being used as a feeder link from the ground to the space to carry this huge amount of traffic that is being carried through this basically network. Of course, these kind of network have to deal with weather conditions, and as such, we need to have all kind of site diversity deployed, like with multiple optical gateway station, strategy located in the ground to guarantee always availability of this network. So we looked at this problem. We looked at the effect of atmospheric turbulence, which affect again the availability of the free space optic links. One way to mitigate atmospheric turbulence that can create scintillations or fluctuation signal at the receiver end is to use adaptive optics, which is an approach that relies on an array of deformable mirrors that kind of basically compensate for the phase distortion that happen during the propagation over this turbulent environment. To make a long story short, this is an illustration of how adaptive optics works. So you have kind of a distorted beam after propagation. If you are able to do a post-compensation, you are able to clean up the beam, or you can do it in a pre-distortion fashion. And again, you can nearly correct all these distortions that happen during propagation. Now, we are able to derive closed form expression for the outage probability for ground to earth, ground to air type of deployment, but also air to air type of deployment, accounting for well-known profile for atmospheric turbulence that are published in the open literature. And the bottom line, if you plot these results, you see that here we are showing outage probability as far as the altitude. And of course, if you use adaptive optics, you have a certain gain by comparing the curve with the same color, one with diamond and one without diamond. You see that there is the clear advantage by using adaptive optics with AO. And then we notice that the uplink is the worst. And this is due to the fact that the density of, let's say, atmospheric turbulence tends to be much higher at lower altitude. So the uplink gets affected more, whereas downlink sees the strength of these atmospheric turbulence only towards the end of the signal propagation. Of course, for horizontal link, operating at a relatively high altitude, like above 18, 20 kilometers, by the time you reach these relatively high distances or altitudes, essentially the atmospheric turbulence is negligible, and as you see, you are operating in a very clean environment from this turbulence perspective. And the only problem that we have to deal with, at least from a free space optics, is more an alignment problem. So you can also mitigate the effect of turbulence by going for a MIMO solution, multiple input, multiple output, where you use multiple laser, multiple photodetector, and you can make your link more robust. That's a scheme that Dr. Richa, former postdoc in my group, looked at, as well as Professor Iman Zeddini, one of my former students, and we showed that essentially increasing the number of links operating the distributed environment create extra diversity. And if you see here a 1-by-1 deployment give you this outage probability. If you go to a 2-by-2, you gain quite a bit. Of course, you see here the azimuth angle, the bigger is the azimuth angle, the longer is the propagation path, and the worse the performance. And we're able to develop, asymptotic results and so on in the paper that you can download in this open access paper. And then, of course, what we showed also that correlation can degrade the performance. I mean, diversity, of course, is always good. It gives you extra reliability. The full performance gain is obtained when all the channels are independent. The reality is you may have to deal with situation where there is a certain level of correlation, and that's why you can see a relative degradation in performance when certain correlation exists. So with that, I think I still have many other slides, but I think it's a good time to conclude so that we kind of wrap up the talk and get to some question. The vision we have to connect the unconnected is to rely on these aerial networks of a fleet of hubs that can connect through multi-beam technologies, remote areas, for basically, again, not only user connectivity, but also IoT or machine type of connectivity. You may have multiple hubs interconnected with free space optic. Some of these hubs can use an integrated access backhaul through feeder links to the ground or to satellites. And that's basically the vision we have for future connected network that are hopefully connect the remaining billions. So with that, I would like to kind of re-emphasize that air and space network is a growing area for a variety of application in land, sea, and type of connectivity for rural, post-disaster, maritime type of scenarios. And combined with air and space network, free space communication technology can be very handy and can capitalize on its unique advantage to enter this expected mass market. And with that, there are interesting problem in integrated space air-ground networks, adaptive optics, and practical low-cost FSO deployment. With that, I would like to thank you for your attention. You can follow some of our papers and basically research updates in our research group webpage, in our YouTube channel. We have established a couple of years ago UNESCO chair focusing on connected and unconnected. We have a LinkedIn page, so feel free to follow the news and the research that is being updated in these free platforms. With that, I would like to thank you, and I'll be happy to take some questions.
Thank you, Professor, for your valuable presentation. Before starting the question session, I'd like to share some basic information about our speaker. Our honorable speaker, Muhammad Salim Aluni, was born in Tunisia. He received PhD in electrical engineering from the California Institute of Technology, USA. He served as a faculty member in many universities across the world. Now he is faculty member of King Abdullah Fahad University of Science and Technology, Saudi Arab. He is currently interested in addressing the technical challenges associated with uneven distribution across and use the information communication technologies in low income and hard to reach area communication. So now I'm requesting audience for questioning. Do you have any question, dear audience? Okay. I have a question to our honorable keynote speaker, Dr. Muhammad Salim, that you show different networking model and different model. So I have a question about you mentioned some constraint about to implement these types of model in different places. And do you have any suggestions to develop the 6G or 5G model in the developing country like Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, and third world country? What types of constraint we can consider in this case?
Yeah, so obviously there is a lot of constraints in many of these countries. In general, in South America, Africa, Southeast Asia, many of these countries that have big rural areas that have often some of these, you know, also hard to reach, low income, you know, geographical areas. The solution I present is one option, like going to the space or the air. It can still be sometimes expensive. There are other kind of solutions that are being deployed to kind of solve some of the problem. One solution is based on using the analysis spectrum, let's say TV white space, to create some backhaul over a few tens of kilometers, and then using Wi-Fi mesh in villages and rural kind of communities. So that's kind of a very low cost type of solution that is being used in Africa, in India, I'm not sure in Bangladesh, but that's an approach that is kind of reasonable before we go to this satellite and hubs type of solutions. So you go with the assumption that some of the big villages or town are connected through, let's say, the regular network, and then to kind of bridge the gap and connect this last mile, let's call them type of problems, we create this extra network over enlarged bands, and that's one way to connect more of the users. There is a company in India called Bluetown, for example, that use this solution. There is a company in South Africa called Riot also that use this kind of solution. So yes, there are some low-cost, affordable solution relying on Wi-Fi and license band type of deployment to try to provide affordable connectivity to these communities.
Thank you, Professor. Professor, I have a couple of questions. My first question, you know, day by day increase the wireless user in across the world, but you know, radio spectrum is limited for wireless communication. So, if increase the wireless user day by day, how to accommodate large number of wireless user for provide quality of service?
Can you repeat the question? Well, I didn't understand.
My
What do you
question
mean?
is that you know that radio spectrum is limited
Ah,
for wireless communication. So day by day increase the wireless user. How to accommodate a large number of wireless user in limited spectrum for providing quality of service?
yeah, this relates to what I mentioned. Going to free space optic, at least for backhaul, is one way to bypass the spectrum congestion problem. As I mentioned in my talk, yes, indeed, spectrum is congested, although sometimes underused. It's congested because it's licensed and to mobile network operators that don't use optimally sometimes the spectrum in certain areas. So one of the solutions to use unlicensed spectrum and try to advocate for more unlicensed spectrum, like TV white space, like Wi-Fi, to allow more use to connect over the unlicensed spectrum. And of course, but that's just kind of one way to kind of give a solution that is not fully scalable, because at some point, of course, you reach capacity. But actually, the ultimate solution is to rely on the optical, for example, or a higher part of the spectrum to give that we have access to this unused, untapped, completely free and abundant spectrum that is in the high part, in particular in the optical band. So that's, in my view, one way to address this problem.
Thank you, Professor. I have another question. Did you consider any interference condition in your proposed model or developed model? Uh,
Yeah, of course. I mean, all of these solutions I proposed when we do optimization type of solutions, we in the rate expression, we assume there is interference. So basically, of course, we take into account the level of interference coming from neighboring users or the neighboring beams allocate to other users. So that's, of course, definitely a parameter that is being taken into account in our analysis and our optimization problems.
okay, thank you. And my last question is that have you developed any test bed for experiment your proposed model, or only use simulation environment for simulate this?
Yeah, for HAPS, as I mentioned, we did a lot of work that is just purely theoretical and simulation based, but we did do a demo that I highlighted. The demo didn't kind of really validate our approach, just to validate the possibility to connect the sky. But yes, we are still long way from like really having a test bed with the hubs, very expensive. But there are many companies active in this area worldwide, and I'm sure with time we'll have more and more experiments with real type of hubs deployment, for example.
Okay, thank you, Professor.
I
And
have I have a one question,
sure.
Professor Dr. Amjad. Thank you very much, Mohammad Salim Alemani. I know that you are the very famous professor in wireless communication. I am working in the postdoc fellow, University of Carlos Teresa of Madrid. My supervisor is Ana Gracia Armada. Okay, so I am working there, maybe. So I am working in the 6G generation, how to distinguish malicious এবং normal user from the network using deep learning. Okay, so I am facing the problem. So data set, do you know that when I apply the deep learning, machine learning, then we have need the well data set. But just we set up here the lab, the some sensor to get the feature, knowledge power and uncertainty and ratio of SNR, and then make the data set on generate data set and then run classify the malicious user and normal user. So if you give some suggestion or information, provide information about the data set, okay, so do you have any data set from the IoT and integrated sensor or any networks? So I want to distinguish malicious and normal user based on the deep learning. Please, Professor.
Yeah, so thank you for letting me know. I'm not aware of that. So thank you for letting me know about your experiment and your work. And of course, I'm very familiar with Professor Anna group and her activity in satellite communication. But fortunately, I'm not aware of any data set. The one we use, we developed ourselves based on synthetic simulation data, but real data set for satellite coming from Starlink. I'm sure maybe some people have done that, and maybe there are some papers that kind of, are doing some experiment and maybe are sharing this data set. But I have not. I'm not aware of exactly available data set in this context.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Professor. Thank you. Thank you for your nice present. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Now I'm hand over this session to a session coordinator. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amjad sir, and thank you, Mohammad Salim, for your wonderful presentation. Now, I just want to share the certificates to honor to fill you. Let me some seconds, sir. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, thank you.
So this certificate is for the session chair, Dr. Mohammad Amjad Hussain. Thank you so much, sir. And this certificate is for Professor Mohammad Salim Alamin. Thank you so much, sir. Sir, can you see this?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable time. Thank you everyone for your valuable time. And in the next section, we will start the graduate forum. If you want, then you can join with us, or otherwise you can leave.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, now our keynote session will conclude our keynote session. So thank you everyone to join with us, and hope the next MIT session we will get together and share our knowledge more precisely. So thank you everyone to join and enjoy the keynote session. So I will concluded this session as well. So thank you, professors. Salim Alouni to give your nice presentations, and hope you will give your supports and your all-time cooperation with us. So thanks all our audience to join in this session.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.